Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. I'm your host, Cleopatra Wise. We are thrilled to have you join us today at the 2022 Virtual National Chinese Language Conference. Tonight, we have over 1,000 members of the NCLC community from across the United States and 13 countries around the globe. Over the next 3 days, we have a robust and engaging conference schedule from 10 inspiring plenaries and keynotes, over 50 engaging breakout sessions, and one-on-one video networking. We also have giveaways on Saturday and Sunday. Go to the Expo Hall and interact with the Expo booths for a chance to win. Our Jade sponsor, Lingo Ace, is giving away a $20,000 classroom grant, so make sure to stop by their booth to apply. The more active you are in the Expo Hall, the better your chances. Please note that the conference is also accessible for the hearing impaired. Just click the closed caption icon at the bottom of this screen. Now, it is my pleasure to welcome the Ace Society President and CEO, the Honorable Kevin Rudd, for welcome remarks. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Kevin Rudd, President and CEO of Asia Society. As a Chinese speaker, it's my pleasure to welcome you to the 2022 National Chinese Language Conference. This year marks the 15th anniversary of NCLC, and I'd like to thank the NCLC Program Advisory Committee for its dedication to ensuring that each year we have a first-class conference. The committee is made up of leading organizations and institutions in the field. They help curate the robust program that we've become known for, and we share a common goal of advancing the field of Chinese language learning and teaching. This is our third year hosting this conference virtually. We first held it back in 2020. We were unsure about how it would go if we continued to do so virtually, but it's been an extraordinary success. We'd like to thank you and our sponsors for backing us all the way through. I'd like to thank all of our conference participants for attending from right across the United States. This year, we're excited to have more than 1,000 attendees join us at this conference, virtually from 11 different countries, including my own country, Australia. Without our sponsors, NCLC would not be possible. Please be sure to attend the Expo booth to explore their great products and services. NCLC is more than just a conference, we're a global community. And by doing this virtually, we bring us all together from each corner of the world. Our teachers were the visionaries throughout the pandemic, shifting from traditional classroom settings to online and hybrid lessons, all while focused on reimagining their classrooms with digital tools. You are all visionaries, and we're proud that together with the Asia Society family, we've made this work. Teaching Chinese language to the next generation of multilingual leaders. Asia Society is on about this core question, this core challenge, navigating shared futures. And that's why educating young people in the languages of the future, including Chinese language, is so important. And beyond that, to ensure that the students of Chinese language understand culture and history as well. This is our unique opportunity to take a great step forward in the teaching of Mandarin Chinese to the next generation of Americans and leaders right across the world. This weekend, you'll have 50 breakout sessions to choose from, multiple opportunities to network in the Tea and Conversation video chat area, as well as go to the Expo booth that we talked about before. So thank you once again for your dedication and attendance, and I wish you a fruitful and successful conference. 谢谢大家。
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this exciting plenary where we're going to talk about the state of Chinese language education. I am joined here with some of the most amazing rock stars for the Chinese language education field. So first up, we're going to ask the most critical question, obviously, to give everyone context. What role do you play in the Chinese language field? And how has that role evolved since the start of the pandemic? So Stacy, why don't you start us off? You're muted, Stacy.
That would be important. All right. Well, thank you, Cleopatra, for this opportunity to join you in this conversation today. I was initially a Chinese teacher for 7 years, and then for the past 7 years, I've overseen the taught Chinese dual language immersion program, which is just finishing its 13th year in our state. In terms of the pandemic impacting that role, it has brought many new dimensions, similar activities, but new dimensions to the things that we have been doing all along. One of those happens to be recruiting teachers. So we had to go about that in a different way, a more direct way, as well as trying to provide resources to navigate the impact of the pandemic on our teachers, on instructional time, and those kinds of things. We, like many of you, had to create online curriculum. However, ours had to be an independent of a teacher type of curriculum, which was a big challenge. So that was a new type of role for our team. And we've spent a lot of time trying to listen and support our principals and teachers as they've dealt with all of the issues delivering the program. On the plus side, however, we've been able to be creative in new ways and had the chance to develop some really fun program-wide virtual opportunities for our students to help keep them motivated during this challenging time we've all come through.
Yes, thank you. And everyone appreciates all the efforts that you've been doing in the field, Stacy. And what about you, Madeline?
I am very involved with the Flagship Tech Center, and I hope that those of you who are not sure what that is can go find out, because it will surprise you the number of innovations that we have done this particular year and the year before, given the challenges of the pandemic. I think that we have integrated a lot of great ideas that in technology and pedagogy match up nicely. I think that's very important for everyone to keep in mind when moving toward technology. So it's an exciting time to be involved with teaching Chinese, that's for sure.
Yes, it is. And Botai?
Thank you for inviting me, Cleopatra. Hi, everybody. Me as a veteran Chinese teacher, I have been playing a lot of roles. One major role is, of course, to teach students in my classroom. And the other side of my role is to provide support to other teachers who are new to the field. At school, I have taught 5 classes. In certain school years, I taught 6 classes of students with sometimes up to 40 students in one class. And my job is to motivate and help them to learn Chinese language and culture. I have also worked as department chair, which needs me to lead a group of world language teachers as a team to complete our educational tasks, to teach thousands of students in the whole school in subjects of Spanish, French, Japanese, and Chinese. And out of school, I carry different responsibilities on different committees, like academic advisory board with the college board, and I worked for college board's AP Chinese Language and Culture Development Committee, and also I'm serving as executive director of the Chinese Language Association of Secondary Elementary Schools, which is CLASS. The pandemic has challenged me and many of us in completing all the work I am engaged in, and at the same time, it has changed me greatly in many ways that I do things. One major change was that it helped me to understand everyone else is also facing the same challenges, and that we have all picked up multiple additional responsibilities other than our regular duties and responsibilities in the job. In front of the challenges, we all have come up to the challenges and made ourselves a better person.
Thank you, Bowtie. And the work that both you and Madeline are doing in terms of teacher development is great. So if you don't know class and flagship, please send us a DM and let us know what your questions are. And Hugh is the founder and CEO of Lingo Ace, one of our sponsors for this year's conference. And they did something very interesting, which hasn't been done since 2015. They did an entire market survey on the state of Chinese language education, which is why they're on the panel today. So Hugh, could you talk a little bit about that? Give us some context on what you all found. And we really want to know what was very surprising about the market survey.
Yeah, actually, in the Lingo Ace as a company, we have done a survey with more than 5,000 American parents and of children under 18 years old. So we get a clearly understanding about the foreign language learning market for children, including how children are learning and also what are the factors are influencing their decision to learn Mandarin. And actually the survey actually shows very, very steady growth over the last few years and about Chinese learning in US. Yet actually we still see that is beset by a shortage of quality teachers and classes offered both in school and as supplementary learning. And actually we found that less than 1% of the US children currently are learning Chinese. Lingo Ace is very, very proud to be making the language learning more accessible to the young learners and through the fun and engaged learning experience, no matter where they live. So if you would like to find more details, you can visit lingoace.com/market study. So you can find out more details. But actually of the findings, we find the most surprising is that increasing percentage of the non-Chinese heritage learners. So out of the age of from 3 to 17 years old, young learners of Chinese learning in US, we find 45% are identified as non-heritage, which is a surprise to us. And also, we dig a little bit more. We find out actually the major reason for wanting their kids to learn Mandarin Chinese, the top two answers were firstly, Chinese as a global language. That's number one. The second one is the child in the future, they may have a better career future. That's another drivers, which is very, very different for maybe 5 or 10 years ago. So that's kind of the key findings we know and we find out. If you are interested in learning more, I encourage you to attend our Lingo Ace vendor session tomorrow, where we will be sharing full survey findings and also introducing new ways we are working to support K-12 Chinese teachers like yourself. And you can also read the highlights, as I mentioned, at lingoace.com/market study.
Thank you for that. I'm curious to hear from everyone's perspective on this panel. Did those findings surprise you? Did they resonate to what you've been seeing on the ground? If so, maybe explain a little bit about that. And then also, what have been the biggest challenges and issues that you've all been facing from your perspective? So we'll start with Stacy. Oh, I don't know what happened with Stacy, but I'm sure she's going to come back. So maybe we'll start with Madeline.
Okay, am I unmuted? I think it's interesting, the reports that you gave about the numbers. In some ways it's surprising, some ways not that surprising. We've been having a lot of students whose parents from the age of 4 have decided that they need to learn Chinese and that it's going to make them more competitive locally and globally. And they've been finding different ways to do that for a while. Often it's the parents of the heritage kids that are a little reluctant to put emphasis in having their kids learn Chinese, I would say, to a professional level, rather than just being able to talk about food or going to see a friend or something, which is kind of the kitchen style language that they are used to, which is great. There's nothing wrong with that. We just need to kind of find a way to get those two communities together. I think that's really going to be important it's important now, and it's going to be even more important in the future.
Yes, that's definitely something that we've been seeing also. And Baotai, could you tell from your perspective?
We all face a lot of challenges on top of that with pandemic. And with the number, I think I also read this information, MLA, a few years ago. I just feel like even though, work, we feel like our program is growing, the number is growing, but overall in the whole country, Chinese, the number of students who are learning Chinese is still a very small number. And that challenge needs us to work together to, for more advocacy, sorry about my English. How do I say that word? Advocacy.
Advocacy, yes.
For our programs. Yeah. Yes.
So one of the other things that we've been interested in knowing is, obviously over the past several years, there's been several bills that limit Chinese government funding of language programs, the closure of a lot of the CIs and CCs, and a general, politicizing of language education. So because, Madeline, you work so closely with Flagship, from your perspective, what could the local and federal government do to build U.S. capacity in Chinese language education?
I think that to some extent they're already doing it, although it's less obvious than it was when flagship programs and CC, et cetera, programs were working together, which was very good, did go on for a long time, I must say, having been involved with both of them. I think right now one of the things that Chinese is still a big priority for flagship. There's been a new Chinese flagship program started at University of Washington, so there are 13 Chinese flagships nationally. Flagship has devoted a lot of money this year in different grants for teacher training at all different levels. San Francisco State did a course in pragmatics. I've been involved with a course with workshops in all the flagship languages at different levels, trying to get people to be able to share materials, work smarter, which is a big issue for all of us from every level. Every teacher is overworked and maybe can rethink ways to work a little bit smarter. There's also a new culture project that was kind of put on hold for a while during be able to share materials situation went on. So I think that there are many opportunities that are going on in the government now. Nestle-wide programs are excellent, and students should be encouraged to take those. I think the most important thing is more communication between advisors and teachers at all levels. I would really like to reach out to, it's probably going to have to happen in teachers from K to 12 because it's just unlikely that the situation will go the other way. So, kind of flagship programs are dying to get more students, and most high school advisors know very little about them. Most teachers know very little about them. So there's a big gap there, and I think we can do a better job of exploring that area.
Thank you. And how could people find more information specifically about the programs that you mentioned? Because I think that's kind of the central question. There's a lot of different things going on, but then people don't actually know where those resources are.
Well, I think Asia Society, of course, does a wonderful job in advertising all of those information, that material. If you go to thelanguageflagship.org, you can find out about all of the programs, not only in Chinese, in other languages also. Maybe a high school student is sick of studying Chinese and wants to learn Arabic, or wants to Russian is a key hot language now, as we all know. So there are lots of other opportunities that students can find out information about by just going to that website.
Thank you for that. And we'll link that in the chat as well. So Stacey, now that you're back, welcome back.
So the funny thing was, I didn't know I was gone.
It's okay. We got you back. So one of the things that, has always touched me when I went to Utah is just how deep the Chinese language immersion, dual language immersion is within Utah. It's definitely special for that reason in and of itself. And the people are quite friendly, like you, Stacey. So how has, the anti-China sentiment affected learning in Utah, if that's the case? And if not, how has Utah, managed to surpass that, and how have they continued to grow their programs?
All right. Well, Utah has not been immune to the negative political rhetoric regarding China, especially given the scale of our Chinese DLI program and obvious sensitivities that it raises. However, that kind of period of time at the outset of COVID has sort of passed. We've worked through that, moved past it to a certain degree, because we were able to engage in dialogue with state political leaders and others, and found that there was information that needed to be shared, as well as simultaneously at the time that this type of rhetoric was going on. They also sent the clear message to us that they were not opposed to Chinese language learning or the Chinese immersion program in our state. In fact, they very much supported it. There were just questions related to program components, teacher sourcing and curriculum sensitive issues like that needed to be answered for them. So in terms of impact on our program and our community, initially there was that misinformation did create some confusion, but that gave us the opportunity to correct that information and offer clarity. And we have not seen a huge impact in terms of the program itself, or people not wanting to be a part of it, because people in Utah have a strong commitment to the value of learning Chinese. And it seems to me this point is inescapable in the 21st century. We recognize the value of this language, and economically, our state's international business community is very connected to China, and regardless of the political ups and downs, I think we all share a long-term commitment to working through that relationship. In terms of why there's that type of reaction here, I think we can look to the heritage of many Utahns who've spent time as volunteers serving people in other countries, learning their languages, and becoming deeply attached to a culture different from their own. And along with that, as a refugee state, Utah has a long and a strong history in the community of embracing and welcoming people of other languages and cultures who've fled their countries because of war or terrorist problems. And so as a state, we deeply value that type of opportunity. We have lots of Afghanistan refugees here. Another example, back in 2015, during the Paris attacks, when there were a lot of Syrian refugees that needed to be resettled. 30 Republican, we're a Republican red state here, a group of 30 Republican governors were like, we are not accepting refugees from Syria. And Utah's governor was the only one to take a different course in welcoming them to our state. So my point here is that regardless of political concerns, our community seems able to separate the people of a country from the politics.
No, I think that's great. And a community is a theme that we'll talk about later on in this panel as well. So for Botai, a similar question as I have for Madeline, what are you doing, as you're working with K through 12 teachers to really help them build capacity within their schools or within their communities for Chinese language?
Our Chinese teachers have played important roles. Me as, also working hard to try to connect with the community. And there were many things that have happened. Actually, some interesting stories. On the one hand, I witnessed our teachers. Many of them are class members who organized themselves into to share the best practices among themselves through means of professional development, and through webinars, through workshops. Yeah. And one thing I want to share is this teachers, this class members, they actually connect with each other. They organized since the pandemic, okay, over 80 webinars. So in the first week of, I think March 15 was the first one we had. So all those webinars, all those sharing information sessions are the proof that teachers are working hard to help each other, and that actually get the community to see our teachers are working together to provide quality work. One thing I want to say regarding a community situation is, are we talking about our community efforts to provide Chinese programs? Yeah, I have one quick example here. I know near my school district, there was a district, the parents wanted to have a Chinese program in their school. And the district was, trying to deny the request by saying, funding problem, this and that. Yeah. What's interesting was the parents told the district that we would like to mobilize our citizens in the city to have a ballot for the election to get charter school, something like that. And the school district heard that, and they know charter school money is actually from the same district. So they said, wait a minute, let's talk. Yeah. So they eventually they opened the Chinese program there, starting with immersion with elementary, and that grew into a full program from elementary to middle school. Yeah, but that's one side. The other side is many of our high school Chinese teachers also organize their students to go to their feeder schools, which is middle schools, to show their talents, show the younger kids what they have learned in the class, to motivate them to sign up for Chinese class when they get to the point. So those are the community, those efforts in the community by our teachers, and that has been very good. Many good things happened in that sense.
Yes, I think one of the things that we've also seen, with our partner schools is that community and parent engagement and really having the support of the local community really determines whether the Chinese language program will be successful or not. And so that's something for the audience to really note. So we all know that the pandemic has been a disruptor to the entire education industry, but it's also led to new approaches and opportunities. For example, virtual NCLC is one of those things. We would have never thought of doing a virtual conference if it wasn't for the pandemic. So what new opportunities do you all see within your space in the field? So I'll start again with Stacy.
All right. You can all hear me, right? So, well, I think now that we all have this higher proficiency with technology that we're accustomed to, that there are a lot of avenues for leveraging that to benefit our students. The biggest opportunity I see is that now we have the capacity and we're willing to use technology so we can engage in new ways of collaboration and support for our teachers and for our students. We in the past, we often talked about networking, and that's sort of something we're all used to now. But I think we need to get beyond that linear picture of networking in our head, of just knowing that there are other people in other places, to really collaborate, what I call in 3D. And what I mean by that is to go deeper in how we can support each other across state and country lines. So we may not be able to take students overseas, but there are plenty of students that are learning Chinese across our country that can engage with each other in many different types of contexts and formats. And I think we've started this with teachers some, but it's even more impactful, I believe, for students. So, for example, we've done collaborations with students from our states and neighboring states, and it's been an extremely positive and motivating experience. So we encourage collaborations within our districts, between our schools, across our state, so students can connect with others who are doing what they are. You know, I'm remembering a high school or junior high student who said, "Oh, I forgot that there were other people learning Chinese besides, just our classroom, here in this state." And so it was very eye-opening and gives them the chance to have a new community of other students that are in this, unique crowd of people learning Chinese. Some of those collaborations have been in the form of culture-centered camps, specific language topics, town halls, and things we've done with a number of overseas partners. And so these have, especially during this pandemic period of time, have played a significant role in maintaining student motivation, and teachers. It's helped, push the students along and strengthened our community. And also, I think we're beginning to have other organizations step up to the plate and increase those kinds of opportunities for our students. So I think it's a very exciting time.
Yes, I think it's exciting as well. So Madeline, could you also talk from your experience?
Yeah, I love the comments that both Stacy and Jia Laoshi made. I think the next step is we need to move this kind of articulation that everybody is starting and interacting with the communities. We need to move it to the next higher level so that we can really get high school teachers, advisors, college advisors, teachers, get them, as Stacy said, to move past just a, brief networking opportunity, but to really find out what each other is doing and ways that they can coordinate to increase the student body and to look at how, increasingly professional our field has become. So I think that that's something that we talk about this K through 16 every year at this panel, and there are other things going on about it, but I don't really have brilliant ideas except to say that we really, really need to do that. And it's very hard for individual teachers, individual coordinators from Flagship or from StarTalk or from someplace else to reach out. So maybe we can all brainstorm and come up with a platform, some way that we can facilitate this kind of meaningful interaction. It's really when teachers work together and on a project that they share something, and that will promote the field. I know, in the MLA report that we were talking about a moment ago, one of the things that's also relevant there is that there's an increase in numbers of students taking advanced level classes. So we have a kind of unbalanced situation. We have numbers that we might not like at some stages, but this other number of students who are taking fifth year, sixth year types of classes taught in Chinese, that kind of work is really pioneering, and we're doing it for the whole field. So we really want to figure out a way to make a big impact that way and work together. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Madeline. And just piggybacking on what Madeline just talks about in terms of community, in terms of really sharing best practices, I know that's a fundamental part of what you're doing with Classical Ties. So could you speak to, how the pandemic has really changed that and what ways you are, using that approach?
the pandemic, as we mentioned earlier, is a challenge to all. At the same time, it provides opportunities for us. And one thing I think not just me, I think many people learned that after pandemic is over, we are all going to do our things differently than before, because we are all now technology equipped. There's always additional ways to do things, because there are meetings we don't have to meet in person, but we can still meet. Actually, we meet more often now online. So we actually reach more teachers in a way, because there are many cases teachers can't really stop teaching and go to a conference. And so I'm not saying we don't want to see each other in person. I'm just saying we have an additional approach to work this out, and we can continue doing what we're doing. The class has been providing teachers with a lot of support in different areas, and for example, some contests. We would like to have in-person contests, but having an online contest, speech contest, in different forms, performance, all this made it possible online. To be online with a virtual contest. Yeah, all those will change the way we work, and also those are opportunities, and we are growing in many ways.
Thank you, Wotai. And from Huyao, your perspective, you are running an online Chinese language platform. So tell us a little bit about, what role does Legal Ace play within the language education space, and how will non-traditional online language learning disrupt or complement traditional language instruction?
Yeah, Legal Ace offers an immersive language learning experience, which is tailored to meet the needs of the K-12 learners. So actually, our students are across a range of the language proficiency level and diverse cultural background as well. So as the committed partner of both young learners and their parents, Legal Ace really harnesses the capability of the passionate teachers, along with the research-backed digital content, as well as featuring animation, gamification, and AI technology together to very, very efficiently and deliver the authentic and interactive online Chinese language lessons. That's what we have done actually during the pandemic. And we have become one of the top leaders in language online learning. And now we have the largest market share in K-12 Chinese language learning. We cover students from more than 100 countries, and the US is the single largest market for us. So we are very, very proud of what the certified and highly qualified tutors and curriculum. Definitely, I think we see something in the changes during the COVID. The pandemic really has not only increased the demand of the virtual and online learning, but also proved that, besides the traditional classroom, there's another way we can also deliver very effective learning and for the children, right? So recently, we announced a partnership with Zoom. So we are able to offer a very stable classroom experience with the better audio and video communications, actually in which we are improve our, and the immersive learning platform. So, but actually, in this post-pandemic world, actually, we believe it's a new norm, right? So Legal Ace would like to become part of the solution to ensure that the children will continue to have access to the quality online education experience and the resources. So we are also here to support teachers. So we want to provide support to the K-12 Chinese teachers so that we can provide more technology resources, and also to make all the teachers can have the, a more impactful and the teaching experience to our students.
Thank you, Kia. And we're very much interested in how, online is going to play a part with traditional learning. And I think all of us got a taste of that during, virtual learning and during the start of the pandemic. And that'll be something that we'll continue to watch and track as we move into the future. So a question for everyone on the panel: how do we all play a role in strengthening the field in both big ways and small ways? So I'll start with Stacy.
Okay, big ways and small ways. Well, I think we've talked quite a bit here about community and collaboration. So I'm just going to bring that up again, and I'll probably do it again. I think we need to build on what we've continued to build on what we've already built to this point, a strong community in the field. To not let that dissipate by any means, but to step forward and take it to the next level. So in Utah, we're always willing to be part of collaboration, however we can. Additionally, though, I think as a field, to be taken seriously and establish ourselves even further, we need to work at building a broader and a deeper research base for K-12 Chinese language education, as well as having a mechanism for that to inform our practice. Much of the research, right, with learning Chinese is with adult learners, or with native speakers. And we just really need that basis, particularly as relates to literacy. So that's something where I hope that we can contribute.
Research is definitely key, I think, to that. And, as Asian Society, we hope to be a part of research and really collaborating with others who are doing research within the field as well. Madeline, what is your take?
I think that it's really important for us to look at all levels of the field now. And try to find ways to collaborate that are meaningful. We just had a student hackathon of flagship students that went to, where were we? Maryland, University of Maryland, and these students are so bright, in different languages, and they came up with apps on their own, but in teams, about ways to improve the way that they learn language. So that's a resource that everyone should take advantage of. The end user are these students who have been studying, whether they grew up learning Chinese, whether it's a new thing for them in college or high school. A lot of kids start in high school, or in immersion from the beginning. I think that there's a lot of work that we can all do to improve how we're communicating the successes that we have, and how we can look for new successes.
Yes, I definitely agree with that. And Boshai, from your perspective, as well as for other organizations that also, work directly with teachers in a member capacity or some other capacity, what do you think of the role that you all play within strengthening the field?
All play an important role in finding a solution. That is not one solution, but with all the current challenges we're facing, I think one big thing is we all need to work together, collaborate, and with a united voice and determination, we can change the challenges into opportunities. And when we talk about challenges, there are so many different things, not just pandemic, just, you look at the current political environment, a lot of things that happen, like, so many areas of challenges. Then the more challenging the situation is, the more united we should be and work together.
Thank you. Unity is definitely key. So I'm going to take a few questions that we got in the chat, and whoever feels compelled to answer, please start talking. So we have a comment in the chat from Anne. Her response is, according to this 2017 research from Australia, dropout rates in primary and secondary school Mandarin Chinese courses can be as high as 95%. So her question is, why do we think that these high attrition rates exist, and what do we propose to do about them? So essentially, in what ways can we help to continue kids to continue their Chinese learning journey and path?
Okay, I'll take that one on. Well, I think what we've seen in Utah, not that type of attrition rate, but I think you have to look at the path. When we look at here, that number of 95%, that is, we don't have all of the information on what type of program models or anything about it. But what we do know that when students reach that secondary level, there are many other forces that come into the picture that can influence their decisions on whether to continue study or not. So my take on this is that from the get-go, from the beginning, we want to help students develop a passion for something in the language and the culture, something that's going to keep them there when the going might get a little rough or when they're not sure if they want to keep at it, along with experiences and opportunities to use their language in relevant ways and meaningful ways along the way. And so, one simple thing, I've always felt that, and I know that programs do this, we haven't been able to make this happen the way I'd like to yet, and right now, given this situation, I don't know how long we'll have to wait, but, going abroad to another country and using your language or another environment where that language is does huge things for student motivation, as just an example. But if students need something to work for, and in Utah, we have the AP test as one of our benchmarks in 9th or 10th grade. But, what kid gets excited about taking a test? That's going to really keep me, that keeps parents excited, but not kids, So there has to be some immediate gratification. There needs to be something that keeps them excited about learning, whether it's something in the culture, which I think it tends to be more often than not, or the people that just really love, characters and learning language. So I think that motivation piece has to be there, along with a pathway of supports and clear steps along the way on how they're going to get there. But I think that's a big question.
I think motivation is definitely, a key component to that. We are having another plenary specifically around Chinese as a global language. I'm a huge proponent of that. Chinese is something that you can speak everywhere and anywhere, including the United States, especially since we're not able to go to China just yet. So taking advantage of your local areas like New York City, where Asian Society is, you can speak lots of Chinese here without ever having to leave America. And I think that is something that we do need to promote to students. Does anyone else want to tackle this question?
I wanted to share some of my observations in terms of students dropping out of the program. Sometimes the whole school is just dropping the program. I heard different stories. I have one personal contact also with one of my former colleagues in China who came to teach the Chinese with very little training about American students' cultural practice or learning, strategies. And so without an adequate training, those teachers might, while they actually had very tension between teacher and student, and because many of the things people do in China may not work in here, and the teacher doesn't know that. And so what I want to say is teachers' professional development or on-the-job training is kind of important. We grow up learning in a way doesn't mean our American kids, even though they look like Chinese people also, but they grew up in America. They are not learning. They are not living in the society or the time that we grew up. So it doesn't work. What worked for certain teachers may not work for these kids. So, but many teachers don't get this, don't realize this. So a good teacher can build a program successful. Also, a teacher can destroy a program, and this principal may starting from now saying, no, we can't do that because we did that before, it doesn't work. So they will say no to anybody who wanted to propose a Chinese program. So key is to provide our teachers enough professional development opportunities, and that is what class is doing. We do summer seminars, we do weekly, monthly webinars, and we try to help our teachers. As I said, many teachers, sometimes one teacher in the school is the only person teaching Chinese, and that person can destroy the program. But if this teacher does well, can build up a beautiful program.
Thank you both, Ty. And I think relevancy is definitely key in engagement. So we had a few other questions in the chat. One question was specifically for Flagship. So how do they apply for Flagship, and can independent and private schools apply for the Flagship program?
So if you're talking about how do you apply to have a program, it depends on, those things are not, it's not like annually there will be this many new programs, but I recommend that you look at the language flagship.org for times when there are openings for a university or college to apply for a new program. But you can also work with existing programs and try to get more information about those programs so that you can, maybe we can create some national webinars or something so that you can answer parents' responses, especially Chinese parents. Don't usually see the value of this program until, a couple of years later. Then they become great supporters. But it would be really great to have a little bit of filler, maybe with class, maybe with other organizations where the, parents feel like, okay, my student has tested whatever on AP Chinese and they're done. And now they go to college and they go to med school and become a lawyer, or, all those stereotypes. So I think that's an important piece, that if we don't, it takes a long time for those students to feel like they can do something on their own that might not be in agreement with their parents. So I think that's a piece that we could easily help with. And, all other kinds of teacher training is so important. We hate the word teacher training, professional development. It's just so wonderful for people to feel validated that what they're doing is important. And what they're doing is incredibly important. And so we really just need to look through the whole spectrum and see how people can get into these other systems, because Flagship is kind of paving the way for, and it's not just Flagship, there are other programs that are also teaching at a very high level. So it's not only Flagship right now, but we are all trying to pave the way to create materials. We're trying to create materials that will be open source for everybody. You might have to be able to change them a little bit for your own situation. But, I believe as a field, if we put some time and energy into this, we can really improve the opportunities for our students.
Thank you for that. And the final question for the chat, which goes to Stacy. They said, as an expert who is leading the Immersed Dual program, do you have any specific examples that you can give for 3D technology and a platform or software for those who cannot go abroad to be immersed in the Chinese community?
Okay, well, I should clarify when I say 3D, I'm not referring to technology. I'm referring to the depth of the collaboration, being more than just simply saying, oh, I know you've got a program there. Here's a great game or whatever. I'm talking about giving opportunities for students to interact. So everything that we've done on Zoom. But the secret comes in the structure of it and the objectives of your time together with those students that are, interacting. I mentioned we've had town halls. We had a third grade classroom from another state, and the third grade, just one classroom in our state, do a sort of a game format in small groups together where they could use their language with other students. So that's what I mean. And these types of things, along with you talked about not being able to travel to China, but we have done this sort of collaboration with partners in China and on cultural topics and with specific city topics, going to Chengdu, going to Xi'an, and a lot with Kung Fu as well. So sky's the limit.
Okay, so we're going to wrap up the panel with a final question, which is actually going to come from the chat because this is such a good question. So how can post-secondary education institutions better support K through 12 language learning and vice versa? So who wants to start? I'll make this more random.
I have the idea of higher education should focus on the research regarding K-12 education, like Stacy mentioned that earlier, I think. So from theoretical part, from practical practice part, so what we do will be depending on the theories, on the research-based theories. And this is what higher education can do for K-12 education, especially we talk about Chinese language teaching. And K-12, I think right now there are so many, immersion program in Utah is doing a very, very good example, but not every state is doing the same thing. But once again, we should do a better job in promoting, getting more students involved in learning the language and keep them motivated to continue after AP. Sounds like AP is the end. Actually, that shouldn't be, because we're hoping to provide higher level students for college instead of stopping at the end of 12th grade.
Thank you, Boss Hai. And let's go with Madeline.
I feel like we've covered a lot of issues here. It's time to figure out kind of a pathway. Like, how can we actually improve K through 16, K through 20 articulation? Students who have been through, we know students who have been through AP Chinese, who have been through immersion programs, they are, usually have done great work, but they're not done. They're not done yet. They still cannot function at a professional level. Chinese is a challenging language, as we all know. So that's the time we have to really put our brains together and see how can we collaborate with each other to push students to see what the benefits are. What's the difference between talking to your cousin on Zoom and being able to actually listen to a TV show? There's a big difference in language use there. And people need to know that they're not done. It's not like the product is cooked by the time they finish 12th grade. And so that takes years of working behind. Middle school is a hard time, as we all know. And many immersion programs have really come up with great ideas about how to keep students in immersion during that period of time. if they can, do more. They've already been sharing so many great programs, the ideas that they've had, and they're already doing it. If we can harness that a little bit more, and that might help some of those teachers who are really struggling with students at that age who, have so many different activities, they often, lose the language part. And I think that's really important. So I do think that we can do more, especially getting in with teachers and advisors. So yeah.
Thank you, Madeline. And what about Hugh Yao? What do you think in terms of, from your own perspective, how you can be supporting, the continuation of Chinese language learning and those pathways all the way from K through 16?
Yeah, actually, it's very important to really have different focus at different age group. So what we have done right now is really about to build their interest when they are young. So that's why from 3 to 6 years old, it's more about build their interest. And then from 6 and to 15 to prepare them to build a very strong foundation. And also we are working on a curriculum which is for the 16 to 18 years old to prepare the most of the students in US for the AP Chinese test, right? So that's why actually, and all the pathway needs to have a framework. So that's why every different stage they prepare themselves and for the next stage, so that we can really prevent a very high attrition rates. And also, I think on top of that, I think that the technology platform can also play a very important role. Is, for example, today we don't need to meet people face to face. We can have the Zoom conversation with each other. But actually, what we can do is build a virtual and a community among students, so they can stay connected with each other. They understand that they are not alone. They can use the language, not just learn the language. So that's kind of something. Lingoways as a company, definitely we are we are very good on technology part. So we would like to provide all this kind of technology to support teachers and to make a much better, impactful learning experience to our learners.
Thank you, Hugh Yao. So thank you everyone for joining the plenary. We especially were interested in hearing all of your insights from the different perspectives that you have across the industry in the Chinese language field. Join me in thanking all of the panelists. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.